Review. I'm the Wild Reviewer, and today I'm gonna review.
Hey there, how are you?
Hello there. My name's the Wild Reviewer, or at least that's what I've been told. And this is a series I used to do called The Wild Review. It was a review series that ran for 6 seasons from 2015 to 2018. Everything since then has either been a mini-series or this in particular series, Rewild. A series I've created that allows me to look back at some old Wild Review episodes to see if what I talked about still holds up today. Because I have changing opinions. I am a growing boy, and some things I've said about TV shows or movies or just other various topics may have changed within the last couple of years, and that's what I'm setting out to do here. I'm gonna look back at various different Wild Review episodes to see if what I said is something I can still agree with. Or maybe I'm just making fun of my younger self. That's very possible. So, unless you have something better to do, which part of me highly doubts, seems like you're gonna be stuck with me for the next couple of minutes as we take a trip into the past. This is the Wild Review Rewild. This season has a theme also. We're going on a road trip.
Wild like wild like.
Hello, welcome to the Wild Review. I'm the Wild Reviewer, and welcome back to another episode of Rewild. Today we're going to talk about something that, oddly enough, is very topical nowadays when talking about movies. We're going to talk about the idea of remaking movies. In 2016, I did a Wild Review episode talking about what I thought about remakes, because for a while now, remakes have been kind of the main thing that Hollywood has been focusing on. This was all brought up because I had noticed how many Disney live-action remakes were in the works. Not even just with movies, but I know for a fact television was also starting to get on the ball with the idea of remaking shows or rebooting shows for a new generation. I think not too long after, that's when Raven's Home started, and Raven's Home was one of those things that would fall under the idea of remakes. They were remaking That's So Raven, but for a new generation. But I'm mostly talking about the movies here. And oddly enough, it is still very relevant because, 2016? A mere 7 years later, we have more remakes than anybody is asking for. There are 3 different categories of movies that we have now. We have original media, remakes or retellings, or unnecessary sequels. More often than not, the last 2 will always be the main things that are advertised. Now again, all these are being pre-recorded, and currently at the moment, Hollywood is kind of in a bit of a pickle. Especially around this specific recording, they have just gotten hit with a pretty nasty storm, which is not a pretty sight to see online. Hopefully, if you were affected by that, you're okay if you're watching this in California. But even before that storm, there was already another storm that was already there and looming over all Hollywood executives, and that's called the strike. At the moment, we are more than 100 days in for the writers and actors strike. I have no idea if the strikes are still going on now, or if anybody else has joined the strike. I have no idea. And obviously everything that they are fighting for is 100% valid, and I think it just summarizes the road that Hollywood is going down, and it is very comforting to know that not everybody wants it to be this way. The idea of constantly remaking stuff is not necessarily one of the main topics when it comes to the strikes, at least I'm not aware that's one of the items on the list of things that they are asking for, but I do know originality within Hollywood is a very big problem. Not even with just live action stuff, but with animation. Animation seems to be in the biggest pit when it comes to how things are run in the big movie business. What was it? Just a while ago, we had the CEO of Paramount, I believe that's who he was, claiming that they were no longer going to focus on original ideas when it comes to theatrical animated films. And the only animated films you will see in theaters are already existing IPs that they're just going to keep pumping out. And then oddly enough, I guess because just the backlash was so much that somebody else from Paramount came out to say, no, we're still going to focus on original stuff. Don't listen to that guy. We have original stuff in the works right now. who knows if those are going to be good. The main reason I think why these original ideas don't work is mainly just because of the marketing. There was a mermaid film recently, like a few months back, and not The Little Mermaid, but oddly enough, it came out around the time of The Little Mermaid. It was an animated film, and I want to say I saw a trailer once, and it didn't do that well, but I think that's because the marketing was horrible. I didn't see the film myself. It's very possible that the film itself was bad. I don't even know what kind of reviews it got, but I do know if you're not marketing a film and letting people know that there's this new product that's out, you should definitely check it out. We worked hard on it. If you're not doing that, how do you expect it to make a lot of money? Well, whatever the case is, I'm kind of falling down a rabbit hole of a big discussion that I can go on for hours about, but we have an episode that we need to watch over. So let's check out what I had to say about the concept of movie remakes in the year 2016, and let's see if I agree with everything that I say. Maybe I will. Hello, welcome to The Wild Review. I'm The Wild Reviewer, and today I'm going to review a thing. What is it with remakes? Why are we remaking movies? That's a very good question. Why are we remaking movies? Recently I've been noticing that there are a lot more remakes of original content, especially in the Disney company. This didn't strike me until I saw the live-action Beauty and the Beast teaser trailer that's expected to come out somewhere next year. And I mean, that's fine and everything. There have been classic Disney movies that have already been remade. We recently got The Jungle Book. There was a live-action Cinderella that came out last year. And there are 2 live-action Alice in Wonderland movies. I mean, that's all fine and everything, but then I started getting a little suspicious, and I dug deeper into this well of future Disney films, and there are a lot of future remakes coming in the near future. A bunch of old classic animated Disney films are on a list to be remade into live-action remakes of the story. I mean, on the list they got Aladdin, Mulan, Dumbo, Winnie the Pooh, which isn't really going to be much of live action, most likely just all going to be CGI. We got Pinocchio, The Little Mermaid, Fantasia, there's a Tinkerbell movie, there's even a Chip and Dale movie. The Walt Disney Company, I want to say, is in the lead with how many remakes they've done. There's probably another studio that has done a lot more remakes than Disney, but at the moment they come to mind, not even just for the ones released in theaters, but there are also a few that have released on Disney Plus. I know for a fact there was a Peter Pan remake. I, for the life of me, do not remember seeing a single trailer. In fact, I think the only one I saw a trailer for is Pinocchio. I don't even remember seeing the Lady and the Tramp trailer. That's a tongue twister. Kind of makes me wonder, what exactly was Disney thinking when they decided they were going to do a bunch of remakes? What was the first remake? Was it... I think it was Alice in Wonderland. Did it do that well that they were like, oh, we should remake more? Why? Why did they start? And as for the Fantasia and Tinkerbell remake, are those in production still? I haven't heard anything about a Fantasia remake recently, although this is going to be said for everything, but I don't think it needs a remake. Isn't that already a live-action remake? And then Tinkerbell, like just specifically Tinkerbell, or were they talking about the Peter Pan remake? Also, that Winnie the Pooh live-action remake, that was called Christopher Robin. I gotta admit, it was a cute film. Wasn't the best, but it was definitely a very cute film. And that's the only live-action Winnie the Pooh film I'm willing to talk about. Put the horror movie somewhere behind me. Half of all the movies that come out nowadays are just original, which is fine. I like original stuff, but then, like, the other half is, like, all remakes, and... why do we have remakes? Okay, so, first off, let's get it out of the way. There is a big reason why movies are remade years later. In fact, there are 3 reasons why. The first one is obviously about money. Companies will do anything for money, even if that means remaking the biggest movie out there. And I mean it. If there is a big hit, there is no doubt that a company in the future will remake that movie just so they can get money off of Money is going to be the #1 reason why anything in Hollywood is made. it can be a dangerous thing, money.
Another reason is because sometimes the film will be such a hit that years later they might want to celebrate it by remaking the movies, which I don't see a point to. I mean, if it's a classic, it should stay a classic and shouldn't have an awful remake, even though remakes can go either way, being good or bad.
Might be a hit that they want to remake as a celebration. I mean, maybe. Maybe if there was an anniversary rolling around and they were like, we're going to do a live-action remake of a story, or we're going to do an animated remake retelling of the story for the 80th anniversary of this project. I don't know. I don't recall ever hearing a film being made in response to that, so I think I was just guessing here.
And the last reason is because it's a way to push the story on to a new generation. We will always have those old classic Disney films that came out in the 30s and 40s and 50s and so on. But remakes are a way of telling the story to a new generation, with a new cast of people, a new way of doing it, and it's just a way to entertain a new generation.
That's something I hear way too often when talking about reboots or remakes. The people putting it out are like, it's for the new generation. Well, I don't know if the new generation wanted it. Like, we, the old generation, we didn't ask for it. You just kind of threw it out there. And it just managed to become a hit. So because it was a hit for us, they think that it's going to be a hit for the newer generation. I mean, maybe. You're taking a chance, of course. Things that have come back have been very good, but then there have been some things that are really bad. And, I mean, it's all about taking a chance, honestly.
But sometimes remakes aren't good. A remake has a chance of either succeeding or a chance of failing. And no matter if it's a good film that it's coming off of, a remake will always change something and have its problems.
Yeah, see, this falls into what I was literally just saying. You always take a chance when you do a remake, something that I don't think Hollywood realizes. And I want to say I've said this before in a Rewild, but every time you make a rebooted show or a remake of a film, like when you choose that instead of going for an original idea, something that could be its own success, you're taking a chance no matter what. You're taking the chance of not doing something original that could make you a lot of money and could be a new favorite among viewers, and you're also taking the chance of remaking a story that is either going to upset people or make people fall in love with the retelling. But more often than not, remakes always seem to have this bad reputation of just not being great. It doesn't have the expectations that everybody else expected from it. And that's because it's a remake. They're trying to do something different, which is almost always the reason why something gets remade, because they are trying to do something different. Remakes are retelling a story, but they always seem to add something new to them, which technically does make it seem like an original piece of media, but a very small percentage of original stuff is put towards retelling a story.
I look at remakes as if they were fingerprints. I know it's a stupid comparison, but hear me out. There is no fingerprint that is alike. Everyone has a different fingerprint. That's kind of how remakes are with movies. If the original movie that you're remaking has, say, a scene where a guy punches another guy and the guy breaks his face and bleeds out of his nose a lot, chances are that remake won't do it exactly the same. I mean, it'll definitely attempt to if it's spot on, but somehow it'll be different and not the same from what it's supposed to be resembling from.
That's not a bad comparison. Usually when I'm doing a comparison, it just makes no sense, but in this case, I guess that's a smart thing I said, I guess. Fingerprint comparison. Not every fingerprint is going to be the same, nor will every movie be the same. I can't name one remake that does something very similar to how the original property does it.
I always say that actors make the story come to life. They are those characters, and it's their job to tell this story as these people. But if you have an actor that does a horrible job at a role, then it's obviously going to fail, mostly because of that one actor. You can remake the best movie ever, like let's say we remade Back to the Future and we got someone like, I don't know, Charlie Sheen to play Doc Brown. I'm just saying, don't scream. Let's say we got Charlie Sheen to play Doc Brown. Now, I don't know exactly how he would do at that role, but let's say he failed at it. the remake would automatically be ruined. But with this example, it goes to show that some actors aren't fit for a part. Maybe there is an actor that would play this part, but you have to make that choice before you go into the film, and it's a wrong decision that can destroy everything.
I'm not entirely sure if it's all based on the actor and finding the right person for the role. I mean, that's a very important aspect to doing a film, but like continuing that conversation of Charlie Sheen being Doc Brown, I think if he was given the proper written material that makes him sound like Doc Brown, and given great direction to him acting like Doc Brown, and if he really gets into the mind of Doc Brown, he could honestly pull off a really good Doc Brown. Anybody can act any role. The iconic roles like Christopher Lloyd's Doc Brown, we're always going to associate him with Doc Brown just because of how popular those movies have gotten. To see anybody else in that role that doesn't act like Doc Brown, yeah, it's going to be a little weird, but there's always a chance that somebody could be better than the previous individual that played a certain role. I'm pretty sure I bring up Willy Wonka in just a moment because I remember speaking about Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory in this video. But I know that there are some people that think Johnny Depp is a much better Willy Wonka than Gene Wilder ever was. And then there are people that think Gene Wilder is a much better Willy Wonka than Johnny Depp. What makes him unique is because he was written to be a little similar to Gene Wilder. Gene Wilder, of course, has certain aspects to his Willy Wonka that are very different from Johnny Depp. And the same can be said for Johnny Depp. They are technically two different incarnations of Willy Wonka, but I don't know, it really just depends on not just the actor, but also what you have to work with, in my opinion.
Remakes also have the fault of adding new material or getting rid of new material, which has been seen in a lot of films that have been remade. A few weeks ago I made a video talking about the live-action Dr. Seuss films that didn't do so well. One of those films was How the Grinch Stole Christmas, which starred Jim Carrey playing the Grinch, who I thought played a pretty good Grinch. Now I know what some of you are going to say, The Grinch is not a remake because it never had a film. As a matter of fact, there is going to be a CGI remake, and while I do agree there was no film before this, they did technically have a 30-minute television special that aired years before the movie, plus it's a film adapted from a children's book, so I'm counting it. But that particular film was a bit different from its original book and 30-minute television special. But with this movie, they took, like I said, a 30-minute television special and even a children's book that, it's a kid's book, it's not going to be more than 100 pages, and basically made it into this 2.5-hour long film. That's because there is a lot more material put into this and also somewhat of a moral that they have to try to get through. There was a lot of new material that was added into this film, specifically because they were trying to get a moral out that Christmas isn't about, the gifts and stuff, it's about family. But they added a lot of things that I don't think was necessary. Like, they explained the one question that I don't think any of us wanted an answer to within the Grinch story. It's said in the beginning that nobody knows the reason why the Grinch hates Christmas. It says it in the book, it says it in the television special, it even kind of says it in this film. They explain it in the movie!
If you add something to a remake, you gotta make sure that it fits properly and it flows with the story that you are trying to tell. Mixing up the ending here and there is fine. If it's constantly being done, then I think people will start to get bored of it. But if you also take away things that are important to the story, well then it will feel a little flat. And then in the end, ironically enough, you'll be telling a new story. In terms of the Grinch, which I have spoken about a number of times, the Jim Carrey Grinch does add some stuff that oddly enough has become very favorable to a number of people who like watching the Grinch around the holidays. But it does add things that just kind of make it stand out on its own and can even feel a little disconnected to the original source material. The whole subplot with the the Cheermeister thing, that was okay. I think adding the reason... What the hell? I think adding the reason why he hates Christmas, not just this film, but the newest animated one. I guess it's not new anymore. It's a few years old now. But that film with Benedict Cumberbatch, they both do the job of explaining why the Grinch hates Christmas, which is something I've never really been a fan of, because I like it to be a mystery. But they both add something completely different to the original 30-minute special. They don't necessarily take away anything. If I had to argue about anything that's taken away, it's the mystery as to why this creature hates the holiday. That was taken away. He's no longer a mysterious individual. We now have a very full-blown backstory of this character, told in two different ways, and I don't think we needed that.
Another example we can use is Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. That was remade years later by Tim Burton into Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And before we get into the details of it, let me just make a little comment about the names. It's kind of ironic if you think about it. In the first film, it's called Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, but yet it kind of focuses a little more on Charlie. And in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, it definitely does focus on Charlie, but it kind of focuses a little more on Willy Wonka. And here's the reason why. So definitely there were changes in this particular film. They made the factory look a bit more factory-ish, and it's not as colorful as it was in the original, but it definitely did look more like a factory. And I should also comment that the Oompa Loompas in this movie were all played by one person instead of the original where it was played by multiple guys, which is pretty cool. But Willy Wonka in the remake that Tim Burton made was a bit weirder. In the original film, he looks like that he doesn't have a care in the world, and it's just his job to show the kids the factory, lose them one by one, and then by the end, just pick a winner to give the factory to. Well, in this film, Willy Wonka goes through some family trauma. Every time he hears the word mom or dad or family or sister or brother or anything to do with a family whatsoever, he goes into like this little mental stage, and we learn later on in the film, and by later on I mean near the end of the film, not the part where he gives Charlie the factory, but after that part, because there's a little part after that little elevator scene, where we find out that Willy Wonka had a pretty traumatizing childhood. There's also this part that kind of connects with what I just said. At the end of the original, Charlie asks if he could bring all of his family members to the factory now that it's his when he wins it. And Willy Wonka says, yes, you could bring whoever you want. But in the new one, Willy Wonka doesn't allow Charlie to bring any of his family members. Charlie doesn't go with the deal because family is more important to him. And then shoe shining, and then Willy Wonka's now living with Charlie and his family in the house that's in the factory, because now they half own it. I'll admit though, that Charlie and the Chocolate Factory movie, that was pretty good. You know, the songs were pretty catchy and all, but there were just some parts that, you know, make me just look at and just say, hey, you're not original. You're not in the first one. Get out of here. You know, walk out the door and stuff.
They are making a third Willy Wonka film. It's the origin story of Willy Wonka, and it doesn't look that bad. I don't know if I'd consider it a remake, because it's really not. I don't think the character of Charlie is in it. It's more of just an origin story, like a prequel. It is what it is. I'm definitely going to check it out, because it does look a bit interesting. But it's also got that holiday movie charm to it. I think by the time that this episode comes out, that film will be only just a few weeks away from opening in theaters, so good timing, I guess.
So with all that said, going through everything that I mentioned about remakes on, you know, why they're made because of them being passed on to new generations, and talking about like some negative stuff like how stuff can be added and possibly even destroy it, there's just one question that I still have remaining. How long are remakes going to be made? It was actually the question that made me want to make this video after looking at the list of Disney films that are going to be remade. Because I found it funny that The Jungle Book has been remade multiple times, and yet they've remade it again this past year, and are even expected to make a sequel in the future. So, are we just gonna live in a world now where we're gonna have a movie that was remade based off of a remake, based off of another remake and a remake? Is it gonna be a continuing line of remakes that we're gonna start witnessing?
Well, me from 2016, I can definitely tell you They are not stopping anytime soon. The amount of remakes that Disney has in store for the future, I have no doubt it is still a humongous list of original pieces of media. Most of them are original hand-drawn animated films that they keep claiming are timeless classics, and they just keep remaking them. It's not really a timeless classic if you remake the story, because if it's timeless, it doesn't need to be remade. Also, I have no doubt that there will be more studios that are creating more unoriginal content and are just going to be doing remakes for probably quite some time. We seem to be in this little bubble of nostalgia in terms of content. Almost everything and anything from the 90s and early 2000s seems to be making a comeback in some way. Just a few days ago, they announced the return of Zoom House. So that just tells me that nobody really wants to grow up, and we're just going to bring back what was good at one point. The idea of bringing something back just to rekindle an old feeling that you had is not necessarily a horrible thing. I think we all want to relive memories that we enjoyed from the past, but there are so many bright minds out there with fresh new stories, stories that have even been inspired by things that they grew up with, and personally I think stuff like Remakes is holding all that back. I'm seeing more often than not studios choosing to retell a story or continue a story rather than tell an original story. And it's all just for the purpose of money, which is not fun. The one question that I still have now is, where do we go from here? I mean, we're in a remaking pit at the moment with Hollywood. We're just getting a bunch of current IPs just being retold and remade, and new stories and sequels, and my question is, when are we going to move past that and go back to doing more original stuff? And the other question I have is, will this happen again? Is there going to be another surge of remakes? What inspired Disney to do all these live-action remakes, and are we going to see a similar thing happen in the near future? I'm not talking about like 10 years into the future. I'm talking like maybe 40 years in the future, because a lot of their films that they're retelling at this point are from the 50s and the 60s. They're the original hand-drawn films, and now we have the live-action films, so I'm curious to know if when I'm like 60 or 70 years old, if we're going to see a new wave of remakes from Disney happen. There are a bunch of questions, and I have no idea if I will have the answers to any of them. I guess we're just going to have to wait and see. But with that, that brings us to the end of this episode of Rewild. That's all I had to say about the remake episode of the Wild Review. If you'd like to check out that full episode, the link will be in the description below, along with the previous 2 playlist links for the previous 2 Rewild series. Let me know if you agreed with anything that I had said here, both currently and from the past. If you agree with anything, leave those thoughts in the comments below. That's going to do it for this episode of Rewild, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. If you like what you see here, give it a like. Show me how much you care. Even if you just give me a thumbs up and say, that was good, I'll take that also. You know what? It just dawned on me. I never showed you where we were today. You know what? That's something I would like to know too. Where are we? I think we're zoomed in here. I think we're zoomed in on a photo. Where exactly are we? Oh my. Oh no. Well, I don't want to be here. I don't think it's very good to be here. I think we should leave. I think we should just get up and leave. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna leave. Because I don't want to be here. I don't approve of this at all.
Wild like wild.